Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are, it is right now, you're right here. My name is Manuel, and it's my pleasure to welcome you. Today is day 51 of the show, and I have to congratulate you for making the best decision of the day to spend some time with me. Let's get started. Right from the outset, let me say something very clearly. I don't want to be misunderstood. I don't want anybody to try to misquote me or mischaracterize what I'm saying. So let me be very clear. I respect people who are genuinely anti war. I really do. If you're somebody who, across the board, just believes war is almost always wrong, that human life is sacred, that no matter who's fighting, it's a tragedy, there are times where I may disagree with you on policy, but I respect where you're coming from. That's a consistent moral position that you've taken, and I respect it. But what we're seeing right now, a little over 4 weeks into this war with Iran, that's not what is going on out there in the streets at the protests we see. Not even close. What we're seeing is something else, and honestly, it should bother a lot more people than it currently does. Because this isn't just, we want peace. This is people going out into the streets, holding protests, and what are they surrounded by? Flags of the old Soviet Union, communist banners, flags of Hamas, flags of Hezbollah, ISIS banners, even portraits of the late Ayatollah Khamenei. Let's just pause right there for a moment, okay? You're telling me this is a peace movement and you're marching alongside symbols of some of the most violent, oppressive, authoritarian movements in modern history? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't pass the smell test, not even close. It stinks to high heaven, in fact. And here's the question I want to ask seriously and sincerely to anyone on the left who considers themselves well-intentioned, principled, and genuinely pro-peace. Would you march in a protest where people were openly flying Nazi flags? Of course not. No decent person would. So if that's true, if you would never under any circumstances stand shoulder to shoulder with people waving Nazi banners, then why are you willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with people waving communist flags or the flags of Hamas or Hezbollah or ISIS? Why is that acceptable? Because it shouldn't be. And I'll tell you something else. This matters more than people realize. Because I actually believe that if the truly sincere, principled anti-war people, the ones I respect, if they simply remove themselves from these protests, if they said, no, I am not standing in that crowd, I'm not lending my presence to that, you suddenly realize something. The number of true extremists in this country, probably a lot smaller than it looks. But right now, they're being propped up. They're being given legitimacy because when normal, well-meaning people show up and stand in the same crowd, it creates the illusion that all of this belongs together, that it's all part of the same movement, and it's not, or at least it shouldn't be. Now, let's go a step further, because it's not just the flags, it's not just the imagery, it's what's being said. We've got people at these rallies, again, in the United States of America, openly celebrating American deaths, cheering it, hoping for more. Think about how far you have to go mentally to get to that point. That's not anti-war. That's not being pro-peace. That is open hostility, not just towards a policy, not just towards a president, but towards your own country and your own people. And yes, people have the right to say disgusting things in this country, but that doesn't make it normal, it doesn't make it acceptable, and it absolutely should not go unchallenged. Because the reality that a lot of folks don't want to admit is that for a big chunk of this movement, this isn't actually about the war. It's about who's in the White House. You can call it whatever you want, but if you're being honest, you know that's true. Because if the same exact situation were unfolding under a different president, one they liked, they would not be seeing this level of outrage, this level of rhetoric, this level of, let's be honest, hatred. Now, again, I'll repeat it. There are people who are consistent, who would oppose this war no matter what. I respect those people. But they are not setting the tone right now. What's setting the tone is something else, something louder, something angrier, and something that seems to be less about peace and more about opposition for its own sake. Against Trump, against America, against anything associated with either one. And that's a dangerous place for a movement to go. Because once you've lost the moral center, once you stop standing for something and you become purely reactive, you can end up aligning yourself with some very dark things and convincing yourself it's justified. So, here's the takeaway, or rather the reframe I want you to think about because it's important that you do. When you're trying to understand someone, don't just ask what they're against, ask what they're for. Because if someone can't clearly tell you what they stand for, if all they have is opposition, outrage, and negativity, then you're not dealing with a principled worldview. You're dealing with a reaction. And reactions don't build anything, they just tear things down. And once you see that clearly, it becomes a lot easier to decide who's worth engaging with and who isn't. All right, that's enough for today. We'll continue next time. And as always, be useful.